everybody. What the flick? Talking the young Pope, the 7th episode. I'm William Bibbiani.
Tim Frisch.
And this was indeed the 7th episode. Very accurate titles. I think we should start coming up with more fanciful titles for every episode that we review. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to call it the Rope-a-Pope.
Rope-a-Pope, I like it.
Or possibly the Pope-a-Dope. Because this is the episode where they try to con the Pope into signing better legislation, you know, and he's not really paying attention, just sort of slipped this executive order on his desk saying, this totally won't undo everything you're doing.
Very clever sleight of hand orchestrated by Sister Mary.
Yeah, so are we led to believe that Sister Mary was directly responsible for hiring those two people?
Yes.
Okay. How does Lenny not figure that out? Because who else is going to know all those details?
I think he did figure it out.
You think he did?
Yeah, because at the end, he and Sister Mary is like, thank you for that. Like, he doesn't react how we think he's going to when he's like trying to get the answer out of Voiello. But when he's with Sister Mary, thank you for that brief moment of release, you know. Because just for a second, I thought, finally, I had my parents back and I could relax and I could get past this on a therapeutic level. I don't believe it when he tells Sister Mary that, but that's what he says. I think he knows.
Okay, interesting. Because I didn't quite get that from it. I thought maybe Lenny, if he has a weakness, it is his parents. It is his,
for sure.
It informs every terrible decision that he's done, that sense of abandonment and isolation and the idea that he doesn't have a father or a mother. And I feel like that's his, obviously it's his blind side. He dropped his guard. He didn't notice that he was signing something he didn't want to sign until after the fact. And then he immediately tried to reassert himself. But by then it seems like he's kind of too late. It seems like now he's actually going to have to sort of commit to a slightly different path whether he wanted to or not.
Which is fine because Voiello didn't pull the big trigger, and that was sign your own resignation.
Well, I wonder if that was that last sheet of paper, though.
Maybe.
Because he didn't do the last sheet.
I couldn't do it. It was a bridge too far. I couldn't do it. Or did you just like get distracted by...
Because he had 3 sheets of paper, sign one, sign the other. Oh, my parents are here. And I was like,
missed it by that much.
By that much. He just couldn't do it. It was so close. I think if he called attention to it, said, "Your Holiness, you forgot to sign this."
Don't forget about this one.
Yeah, I think that would have killed everything. That would have killed everything. Okay, so we got that going on. We got Cardinal Dussolier having a rough go of it.
Yeah, he's having a bad couple of days.
What's he been going through? Like, let's run down.
So he is feeling immense guilt for having to enact this homophobic new tradition in terms of hiring new priests.
Yeah.
So much so that one of the hopefuls, Angelo Sanchez, commits suicide by jumping off the Vatican Palace. I don't know how he got up there. The Swiss guards aren't doing a great job. But so he's dealing with that guilt by drinking. He goes to the Countess's party where she tries to seduce him. And
throws herself at him.
Laughs.
And it's
off.
interesting that he doesn't go for it at all, because we've seen that he'll have awesome orgies, like really great orgies.
Yeah.
Like the best.
Like solid orgies.
Like I've
threesomes, but
orgiastic threesomes. Really great stuff.
It was a solid threesome.
So he's not like against having sex.
Correct.
Thinks she just wasn't doing it for him, or did he
part of the hypocrisy of his position is that he has to enforce both the vow of chastity and heteronormative ideals within the church, of which he believes in neither.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So aside from getting trashed and hit on by a countess and then getting stabbed in Honduras, Andrew Dussolier also, is raped by a chauffeur.
Yeah.
When he gets dropped off to the Vatican.
Was it the chauffeur? I thought it was like the Countess's son or something.
Yeah, their assistant, their butler, whoever drove him back to the Vatican and got his crucifix out of the pool, also took advantage of a passed out drunk.
I know, and it's horrifying, and he stops him.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change.
The violation is done. Yeah.
It's totally violating, and I think it's just the last straw for him. It's got to be. But I don't know. I'm not sure what we're supposed to be getting out of that other than people are horrible. Like, is this supposed to be like some sort of thing about how people are fetishizing men of the cloth, and because we've already seen that, or...
I took it as, the two sides of his personal vice. So he doesn't respect his vow of chastity. He is also bisexual. And here he is at his lowest moment when he's so far away from that life that he wants, being hit on by and taken advantage of by both genders in a very sexual way. and he sees the ugly side of that coin. In a different light, he would then reject that lifestyle and say, I really need to double down on chastity because now I've seen the ugly side of sex and taking advantage of, and how I'm in defiance of my calling, essentially.
It's also a way of sort of making him look at the corruption of people in positions of power.
Yeah.
Be it like sort of political or financial or simply being able to take advantage of someone. People don't resist the urge if it occurs to them at times, and that might also make him kind of look at Lenny differently, I also wonder. So he asks to be sent back to Honduras, and he is.
Well, that request is refused, but he quits anyway.
Okay.
At least that's how I read it.
In any case, he goes back. It does not go well.
No, I don't know what he thought was going to happen in Honduras.
Well, she says he knows after he gets off the plane, so I guess he didn't know until he left the Vatican. Perhaps if he had known going to Honduras is a death sentence, he might not have. And of course, he ends up getting shot, left by the side of the road, dead or for dead.
He looks dead, but I assume he's left for dead.
Yeah, because this could totally be a thing where the next episode, half of it is him crawling.
Yeah, or some Honduran shepherd comes upon him and nurses him back to health, and then he finds God. That's a little cliched for this show. I think he could be dead.
He
honestly,
could be dead. And then what supports that for me is, this sort of, whether or not Lenny's every decision seems holy or in the best interests of the people, he tends to be right about a lot of stuff. He did make someone pregnant, more or less. He did, sounds like he cured someone who was terminally ill when he was a child. It's possible that by getting the Cardinal to the Vatican, he was actually saving his life. And by going against the will of the Pope, immediately he dies.
Yeah, there's these subplots that Lenny, or there's these theories that Lenny is like a super genius, and giving all these what seem to be awful assignments to the other cardinals is exactly what they needed to survive or get to the next level of their faith or their commitment.
Right.
He sends Gutierrez, who has never left the Vatican, to take care of this big scary thing in America.
We still haven't really followed up on that.
We haven't yet.
I'm still waiting for that shoe to drop there.
There's this underlying it's not the task you deserve, but it's the task you need right now.
Yeah.
And because Dussolier abandons his calling, he is punished for it.
Yeah. Now, and that sort of thing, it seems like kind of an easy writing trick, where basically your protagonist can do no wrong. Even if he does wrong, you just find some way to make it seem like he did the right thing over and over again. But it creates a theme. And I think the theme here is, again, kind of confusing. As we discussed the last time I was on the show, the idea of, I think it was the last time I was on the show, does this show believe in God?
Yeah.
And I think whether or not God exists really does matter in the young Pope, on a literal level, because everything Lenny does, if it is ordained by a higher power, as indeed a significant number of the people in the show believe it does, that changes everything. And if it's not, then it's just a show about politics.
Right.
And I think that's rather fascinating.
I think the show is giving us hints that the Lord is working through Lenny.
Yeah.
We've seen a couple of his miracles, whether or not they're miracles, we don't know yet. But we've also seen him be right about a lot of stuff without showing that he knows it or realizing it.
Yeah, and now we're starting to see, even though Voiello couldn't quite go through with getting the resignation papers, they're actively working to replace the Pope.
They're not done with getting rid of Lenny.
Yeah, and Spencer's...
And in fact, Sister Mary is the one that fucks that up. Because he's like, I'm a failed Pope, I'm going to resign. And Sister Mary's like, no, you're a saint, you're so good.
Mary! Why would you do that? We were so close. But I'm not entirely sure. I mean, on one hand, I would say I disagree with a large number of the things that Lenny is doing. I'm not entirely sure that any of these other people who are vying for the position are going to be great. Spencer, I guess, is considered a really holy person, but he's also
super
petty.
Selfish, super vain.
Yeah, and we saw him basically give his Pope acceptance speech in the bathroom mirror, like I do every morning at the Oscars.
Right.
It's not really the best behavior. And then we have what was the name?
Cal Tenaceta.
Yeah,
the old guy.
Old.
He's very old.
Old guy wants to be the Pope as well. He mentioned in the previous episode, I think.
Now, are they conning Spencer? Because they go to him and kiss his ring, but it's only after they have the discussion was like, no, not Spencer, me. And Voiello's like, yeah, fine, whatever.
Voiello does not care. He just wants someone manageable.
He wants to save the church. I get it.
Yeah, but he doesn't care who's the Pope, pretty much as long as it's not Lenny. I think he acknowledges that Lenny is just about the worst possible choice. Because even if they had a crappy Pope, like someone who was just bad at it, they could have been controlled. They could have been. They would have at least followed similar rules.
Or they would have been advisable at the very least. They would have taken other viewpoints into consideration, where Lenny is staunchly against that 100%.
Now, I watched the last 2 episodes because I missed the last one back to back. So refresh my memory. Was this also the episode with the Italian Prime Minister?
No, that was the last one.
That was the last episode. Yeah. Okay, so. The thing with that one, though, and I am wondering, though, because we're starting to see maybe a slight change of heart from Lenny. Because in that one, Lenny did threaten, I can just reveal myself, and what a big publicity stunt, and it'll change. Is Lenny going to have to backtrack on a lot of his flamboyant publicity in order to become a different Pope, in order to actually grow as a character? Or do you even think we're going to do that?
Lenny has been resting on the gravitas of just being Pope. They say in this episode that he hasn't done anything. The church is doing nothing. It's not helping anyone. It has totally gone into seclusion. So Lenny has played no cards yet. And so he revels in telling people about how he has all these cards to play.
Yes,
and he can make all these big power moves, but it's not necessary yet. So yeah, we won't get to the end of the season and he'll have done nothing. He has to play a hand.
I really want to see a sitcom that's like Mr. Popadear, where it's like the Pope is the nanny of like a family and their baby.
Yeah, like exactly what's happening.
Like I only want that. Like that's it. It's just basically the Pope dropping the baby. Oh, what a lot of poop. And just like that's it. That's the whole, like, how do you is that normal? Like, popes don't typically do that. Like,
no,
odd.
That's the weird thing that Voiello wants to capitalize on. He doesn't know how yet, I think.
Yeah.
But the Pope is obsessed with this woman and with their baby. Obviously he's got parent issues.
Yeah.
So he's sort of reliving his own childhood through this child and wanting to be a parent to it, but he's not.
Here's the funny thing. He has a speech here, and he says it to the Cardinal, that priests don't become fathers.
So they can't grow up.
Also, so that they will forever only be like the Son of God. They will never take God's position. As the Pope, he's the father of the church. He doesn't seem to understand this, but he does seem to want to subconsciously insinuate himself into a patriarchal position as much as he can with that baby.
That's one of the complicated things about religion, is that everything is open to interpretation.
Yeah.
You could say, yeah, I'm the father of the church, or you're just as right in saying, I am the father to no one. I can never be. I have to be subservient to God.
Right.
And Lenny's playing both sides of the field right now. To not great effect either way, but it leaves his options open.
Well, you're right. It is open to interpretation, but Lenny he's described multiple times as having a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
I think giving him another interpretation, I expected someone to say it and blow his mind.
And that information is getting out now. Tommaso is telling people, like, hey, the Pope, have you heard the Pope doesn't believe in God? I'm really stressed out now because the Pope does not believe in God. It's freaking me out, man.
It's interesting because I would have thought he would have said that almost immediately. It's taken him a really long time.
Yeah.
Thinking because we cut 9 months recently.
Yeah.
He's been poping around, he's been out and about, not this, It just seems, I'm curious, there was no real inciting incident for that sort of personal.
It's just
personal
a slow
betrayal or
boiling in Tommaso's guts.
Yeah, we also had the detective come to Voiello.
Yeah, that was last episode.
That was last episode.
They mention it briefly in passing in the dinner scene this episode, where it's like, oh, Pope, the one thing we agree on is how to handle Tonino. And then he's like, forget about that story. We're talking about something else now.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. It'll be important later.
We have no idea what's going on with Tonino. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's gone. Maybe they found quicksand to throw him in.
Yeah.
That was a weird...
I don't know. Just that whole 9-month thing, it occurs to me that, again, Lenny is a young Pope. Lenny could, well, he's really young. He could be Pope for we mentioned before, decades.
Yeah, decades, sure.
This show could take place over decades. They could cut 10 years into the future.
Yeah, they can make Jude Law look 10 years older for sure.
Yeah, I kind of wish that someone would point out, after he comes out and reveals himself someday, for whatever reason he does, he comes out to the public. Look at me, I am your Pope. And they're just like, oh, he looks like Jude Law. Doesn't that be cool?
Spitting image. Amazing.
Weird. Wow, that'd be cool. And then Jude Law gets to show up in the show and meet the Pope, prove they're not the same person, then they switch places. It'll be fun.
There's very little surreal. Well, they had the dreams.
Surreality.
Yeah, they had the dream sequence with the young mother walking out of the pile of dead babies, which we haven't seen for quite a while.
Yeah, and got real vaginal there, didn't it? Like it was like a birth scene. You know.
And then he's got another dream where they're all lounging by a waterfall in their underwear.
Yeah.
He's
got odd ideas about family and parenting, and I'm not entirely sure he understands certain amount of propriety and normality. And I think in his dreams, there's a real intimacy there. I mean, I think one of the first things we saw was a dream. Well, I didn't know it was his mom yet, but like of his mom naked.
Yeah.
Like he's got some issues. And I'm not even saying they're horrible issues, but they're not manifesting very well. And he's really, really got to deal with it. Lenny, you can talk to us. Come over. Help us out. The Young Pope. We'll be back with the 8th episode.
Yes.
This Thursday.
Later this week, yeah.
Yeah, because that's how fast this show rolls. And that's how we roll here on What the Flick. Thanks, everybody.